This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com, the most popular pro wrestling YouTube channel based in Canada by far. No one comes close. But I got some sad news to report. The father of Roman Reigns and former WWE superstar Rosie. He was a three-time WWE Tag Team Champion and member of the 2007 Hall of Fame. Wild Samoan Sika has passed away, famously the partner of Afa. They were before my time. The main thing I remember about them is Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas beating them to become the first black WWE Tag Team Champions. So other than that, I don't really have anything that sticks out from them. I know he wrestled on a Saturday Night Main Event at one point, but so they did use him in later years as a single here and there. But by the time like the 80s, toward the late 80s, when I became a fan, because I was just a kid in the 80s, a little baby, he was pretty much being phased out. But that might explain but why Roman Reigns has wanted all this time off, if he may have been aware that his father was passing away, because so far the interest in WWE has gone down significantly since WrestleMania, with Roman Reigns no longer being part of the product. They even canceled a couple house shows recently. Their sellout streak ended. There's been less interest in pay-per-views. They're still doing good overall, but it's not to the level of when Roman Reigns was champion. So as I said, maybe there is issues. Of course, if my father was going through health issues, um, not only would I not want to feel like wrestling as much, but I would definitely want to be spending as much time with him as possible. There's a ton of other news, so I'll get into that now. As far as Two Cold Scorpios incident, TMZ has released more pictures of what they're calling the victim, quote unquote. Here's what I don't understand, and maybe it's a difference between Canada and the US. First of all, Scorpio's almost 60. People think of him of when he was in his prime in WCW and Flash Funk in WWE. This guy has been through battles. He's got injuries. He's older. He's doing a security job, probably not getting paid that much. This guy attacks him, as reported, tried to double leg him. You never know who's armed or not. I'm not justifying that he stabbed the guy. All I'm saying is I've worked security on my own before. It can be scary because you have no backup and you don't know if the person causing trouble or attacking you is armed or not. And if Scorpio is armed, he's a guy that's, from what I understand, he's a badass type guy. You don't know all you know is this guy's attacking you and you defend yourself. I mean, he is bailed out and he's gonna get his day in court. And I mean, I have heard other stuff about this case that I'm not going to talk about, but there's a whole other side to this. But I don't consider anyone that attacks somebody else a victim. They started it. He's just working a job, man. If you're doing a job that's not paying much, I highly doubt security guard at a gas station pays a lot. The guy has kids. He's older. He's got injuries, and this guy's attacking you. You're going to defend yourself. And sometimes when you're defending yourself, you become an animal if you have that side to you. I'm gonna guess, since it was at a gas station, it was filmed, but I would not call this guy a victim. He was the one that was the attacker. So I'm sorry about that Scorpio has to go through all that. I'm, but there is another side to it that I'm sure is going to come out. Positive is going to come out. Apparently, according to Dave Meltzer, WWE is getting the largest American site fee ever for their deal in Indiana for WrestleMania to come there as well as the Royal Rumble and SummerSlam. SummerSlam is going to be 2 nights starting next year. To me, and you know what? I'll be honest. I was actually talking to someone at the gym yesterday, okay, who was a wrestling fan in the 80s. This guy is an athlete in golf and speed skating. And he was just asking me why wrestling isn't as popular anymore. We keep hearing it's going through a resurgence, but this guy who does not follow it anymore was asking me, in my opinion, why it's not as popular. One of the reasons is they keep watering stuff down. SummerSlam 2 nights. You know what that means? Instead of having the best of the best on one show, it's spread out and watered down to 2 nights. I mean, I know why they're doing it, because they can and they're getting larger site fees to do it twice in a row, but it waters down the product just like as we saw. You know what? Remember when AEW just had Dynamite? Remember that? They were actually way more popular. Now they got Rampage and Collision, and they went from, I think it was a 0.64, 0.66 first episode of Dynamite to 0.16 last week. More is not always better. People need to understand that. I know they're a rich company, they have more sources of revenue than ever, but to me, adding a second night of SummerSlam, I mean, it just makes SummerSlam more watered down. That's just my opinion of it. They're also part of that deal is to bring numerous Raws and SmackDown to Indianapolis. So I'm gonna assume they must be getting site fees for those two, because it was in the news before that they're looking for site fees for Raw and SmackDown. Apparently, UFC, other than Madison Square Garden and T-Mobile Arena in Vegas, those are the only two arenas that they're gonna go to and not expect site fees. That's according, and keep in mind, UFC owns WWE as well. It's all part of TKO. So keep in mind, UFC came twice here to Ottawa. That's not going to happen again unless the city of Ottawa or some rich person in this area pays a large fee for UFC to come, because they just don't need the money, and it's too much of a pain in the ass to do. They'd rather just put on a fight night at the Apex in Las Vegas where their base is. It's cheaper overall for them. So we're living in a new world for as far as site fees. I don't know who Kaiser is, but Kaiser from WWE is apparently hurt. From all reports, The Miz did commentary on a match on Raw yesterday, and it was terrible. Apparently, for McGregor, who, I mean, there's a toe injury. If the money was right, would he still have done the fight? Probably. But apparently, McGregor might not fight again until whenever they go to Saudi Arabia next, where there's a ridiculous amount more money for the show and he can get paid more. Dave Meltzer, I listened to his radio show today. He doesn't understand, and I agree with him on this, and I'm sure everyone else does. We've seen like crowds are way more hot in the UK because they don't get American wrestling and the bigger names over there. Like for instance, WWE just went to France and Scotland and had hot crowds, much hotter than American and Canadian crowds. He doesn't understand with AEW being so dead right now why they are not doing more shows in the UK, and I have to agree with him on that. Adam Copeland posted an update on his foot injury that he now has 5 more screws and a plate in his body. I got 2 screws in mine, and I'm doing my comeback this Saturday night in Napanee. But for Ricky Starks and other AEW news, who they're not using, He's another one of these guys like Rusev and how Jeff Hardy was before he was released, how Jake Hager was before he was released. They're just not using him. I'm not a fan of Ricky Starks, but I do think that it's just such a waste of money that they just like is Ricky Starks really gonna wrestle anywhere but NXT if they release him? It's not like I don't think he's gonna get a main event push in WWE. Tony Khan just pays people to sit at home. A rumor came out today that I guess he won the Owen Hart tournament last year, and apparently there may have been a bar situation with him in Calgary last year, and maybe that's why he's not in the Owen Hart tournament at all this year and hasn't been on TV. Who knows? I worked in the bar scene in Calgary. There's a lot of fights in Calgary. I mean, it's a rough cowboyish type city where people like to fight. So I don't know if he got in a fight. All I can tell you is it's not that hard to get a fight in a bar in Calgary. Not that hard at all. People like to fight there. So I'm not gonna say first of all, we're only hearing about this now, a year later, and I think he won the championship since then. So it's just rumor and innuendo that that may or may not be why they're using him. They just like to waste money. It's a wasteful company. It's not run like a business. CM Punk said they lost 34 million last year. Supposedly they're paying MJF 25 million for a 5-year contract. They hired his girlfriend on top of that. I mean, is MJF worth 5 million a year when he was just on a show that got a 0.16 rating? And MJF would not be a main event player in WWE. I'm not saying he's not talented. I'm just saying the main event scene is too thick right now at WWE, and to be honest, he's too short to work with a guy like The Rock or Roman Reigns that are much taller. Even Cody Rhodes is like 6'2" ish.